Our first email is from Rusty, who's from the internet. Hey guys, thanks so much for mentioning my email a few months back. Still love the show and listening to you guys. I can't afford the Switch just yet, but there was only one game I ever wanted in the first place. You guys know what it is already. Of course, it's Breath of the Wild. I've gotten the glider and sunk 20 plus hours into this game so far. I absolutely love it. The best Zelda game I've played. Even putting Wolf Link Amiibo on the screen is just so fun. So I'm playing on the Wii U. My question is, do you think Nintendo should have given us Wii U users the Sheikah Slate on the Wii U pad, just like in Wind Waker HD? That would have been awesome. Can't get enough Breath of the Wild. Such a big game. Just love it. But I won't be buying the Switch anytime soon. Thanks, guys. Rusty.
Well, thank you, Rusty, for the email. I think he represents a relatively sizable chunk of the Nintendo audience who bought the Wii U and had the promise of Zelda on there. And this, I think people have reacted differently as to, the Wii U version and how it runs and all that stuff. But I think it was smart of Nintendo to keep that version alive, because you don't want to burn that audience who were promised back in E3 of 2014 or whatever it was, this game that they were really excited for, and then say, oh, you have to buy a new system for it. I think that would have been a bad move. I think it's the sort of move when we talk about stuff like the Shovel Knight developers still making extra campaigns for Shovel Knight. The reason they do that, Bally, is because they want goodwill from their Kickstarter backers. It's the sort of thing where Nintendo needed to keep that goodwill to keep people on board.
And I did a tweet a few weeks ago, and I said that, to my knowledge, the Wii U, was the only Nintendo system other than like Virtual Boy and maybe like new 3DS perhaps, and like iterations on previous systems. The Wii U is the only system that doesn't have its own unique Zelda. And sort of a few people replied saying, oh yeah, it does, it's got Breath of the Wild, like that's designed for Wii U, like that's a Wii U game. And I think that it probably started being designed for Wii U but ended up being designed for both ultimately. And I think that's slightly different to Twilight Princess, which to my knowledge was designed at a much later stage for Wii compared to Breath of the Wild. But am I wrong on that?
I'm not sure, because we don't know the internal, workings of Nintendo and how their development switched and when they decided to pull the plug and all this stuff. But for me, I think that the game that was the Wii U version of Breath of the Wild doesn't exist anymore, and that kind of sucks. And the version that could be the optimal Switch version also doesn't exist. So here's the conundrum, Bally. With the Switch, you have the ability to take it off the screen, use it portably, but the touchscreen doesn't work at all. I believe, and I think RFN mentioned this, that the only way to use the touchscreen is to type in horse names, like using the virtual keyboard. That is the only use of the touchscreen in this entire game. And there is potential you could have thought of, hey, on the Wii U version, we give you this screen where you can have inventory management and that kind of stuff. And if you're playing the Switch version portably, you can also do that stuff on the touchscreen. But I feel like the messaging, they didn't want to mix it up, and they didn't want people to go, oh, the Wii U version, you can have it on the screen and then have all this amazing stuff on the gamepad, like the map constantly, like pinning stuff on the gamepad constantly. And really, like, you look at Breath of the Wild, the DNA of the Wii U is all over this, because the entire premise of the Sheikah Slate is it's a Wii U gamepad. Like, it's a second screen for Link to use. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the Wii U version originally, you would hold up the gamepad and like swivel it around like you do in Xenoblade to like view the environment, or placing, taking inventory stuff and doing it on the fly, so you wouldn't have to dig into menus. It definitely feels like the relic of that version still exists, but Nintendo were afraid of creating a situation where the last gen version had features that outstripped the new one.
And I think that you have to look at this from Nintendo's perspective about opportunity cost. So like Nintendo know that there's already 16 million, is that the right number, of Wii U's out there?
It's about 13.
13. So there's about 13 Wii U's out there, and of those 13...
13 Wii U's, that's it.
Let's say 13 13
13
million Wii U's,
yes.
Not 13. And ultimately, there's not currently well, now there's plenty of Switches out there, but there's an opportunity of how many Switches are going to be out there. So I'm thinking about in terms of opportunity cost, which do you want to go with? The failure of a system in many aspects of the Wii U that only sold 13 million, or the system that's the hot, brand new, sexy system that's arguably going to sell more than 13 million, certainly in its lifetime, if not in the first few years. And if you look at it in that sense, you can see why they really didn't want to invest too much in extra features for the Wii U version. And I'd even go as far as to say that you could argue that Wii U owners of this game are lucky that even a Wii U version came out, in the sense that the cost for Nintendo is mad to invest that much in a game for a Wii U version when there's only 13 million Wii U's out there.
Right, so you have a ceiling, essentially.
Exactly. Whereas the more money and the more effort you put into a Switch version that, like you said, could have been specifically made for Switch with no Wii U reference whatsoever, and there could have been extra stuff done for it, etc. There could have been less. The Sheikah slate might have looked completely different because it didn't have to look like a slate like a Wii U gamepad. Who knows? But they decided that ultimately we just talked about goodwill. They wanted the goodwill of saying, you know what? This originally was planned for exclusively Wii U, and that we're gonna stick by our word and say, like, this game is coming out on Wii U, fine. But we're not giving it the extra features because ultimately Switch is what it's all about, and we need to make sure that the Switch version is impeccable. And to some degree, I can see why that makes sense. And from a purely money-making perspective, like I said earlier, I think that consumers are a tad lucky that the Wii U version even came out.
I think that you're right, and they kind of needed to shoot their own thing in the foot, because otherwise the Switch version wouldn't have taken off in the way it does, you know. And I think the fact that the Wii U version, you know, for some people, resolution matters a great deal. So it runs at 720 as opposed to 900. The frame rate drops are way more significant. I was actually kind of shocked because I was watching Brad Shoemaker play a bit of this game last Friday, and he went into areas, like town areas, which I've been playing on the Switch version, which run fine. They don't have any issues. And, oh my god, like, it was like being back in Havana on fucking Assassin's Creed 4 with you, Bally, where it just chugged the hell out of the Wii U. And he was just looking around these places that... And I love the towns in Breath of the Wild, and it feels like on the Wii U version, you can't enjoy them in the sense that, you know, you can't wander around the smooth experience because it's so damn choppy, and that sucks. And it also makes me feel like, now I don't know how processing power works and all this stuff, but surely there is some part of the system that is used to stream the data to the gamepad, right? So that you have the second screen stuff. And if the Wii U version is struggling to run this game as it is, I wonder if there was any problem there with even like getting stuff onto the gamepad. I'm sure there wasn't. I'm sure they have like separate engineering ways of figuring that stuff out, you know, as opposed to impacting the world itself. But yeah, it did shock me, and I was like, oh god, yeah, this. And really, the thing that has surprised me the most about Zelda is the fact that even on the Switch version, there are significant frame rate drops. And to me, that is not Nintendo. There are so many things that are not Nintendo about this game. That is the most not Nintendo thing. They, by far, out of the three console manufacturers, prioritize frame rate the most. And I love them for it, because we get Mario Kart at 60, and we get these really fluid experiences. And obviously, with big open worlds, we had this as Xenoblade Chronicles X, they have to drop it down to 30 because their systems aren't powerful enough to run it at the resolution they want to have the consistent frame rate they want. But the fact that Zelda still has drops and still, you know, for whatever reason, isn't optimized fully is really shocking to me from Nintendo's perspective. Because they usually don't ship products like that. So... yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if that's a product of, you know, the Switch version having to be moved over and how long it took them to do it, if they couldn't optimize it properly because it had been built so much from the Wii U version. But, you know, I would love for the Wii U version or the Switch version to have that functionality, even if you're just taking it on the go and using the touchscreen to use inventory management at the most basic level. That would be really convenient. I think especially if the Switch, you know, didn't come out and Nintendo had been more successful with the Wii U, I think a lot of people would like this game a damn sight more. You think of someone like Jeff Gerstmann, who has been criticizing this game, I think rightly so for some things it does in terms of inventory management, and all of his complaints would disappear if the Wii U version existed in its original form, because you can just flick things on and off. And we know how easy that is, having played Wind Waker HD.
Right.
It's joyous, you know?
It's
you just
great.
have it right at the palm of your hand, and there's no worries about micromanaging anything.
Exactly. So, like, should they have made a Wii U specific one for the fans? Maybe, but money-wise, there's not much
This
benefit.
is a business decision, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, this decision is driven by, hey, we want to sell this new system, versus, hey, we want to make the best possible experience. And look, they've made a fucking incredible experience. I think anyone who has played this game can say that. But it could have been better. And unfortunately, that kind of knocks against the realities of making money. And, you know, we love Nintendo, but they're also a corporation, and they're, you know, they make video games to make money. So that's what they do. If you enjoyed this discussion and would like to hear more, consider subscribing to us on YouTube and following the podcast playlist. You can also find us on iTunes and various other places. Follow us on Twitter at TNL Podcast and email us thisnintendolife@gmail.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.